Do you ever wonder why you're doing what you do in life? Do you wish that you could be really happy and passionate about what you do? Or maybe you already are and you want to expand in a different direction. Hi, I'm Barbara Ann, host of What the Why? I love what I do. A lot of that has to do with my story, my journey to this point in life. And guess what? Everybody has a story. So please join me for conversations with leaders from all walks of life about what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. How they found their core purpose, their passion, their mission in life. And if you're looking for your own, maybe you'll get some great suggestions on how you too can find your why. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of What the Why, the show that features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why we do what we do and how we figured out it's our purpose. If you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired or feel stuck and want to get unstuck, whether that's in your job, your company, or even just your life, all of our guests have something in common with you. At some point, they felt similarly and they decided to do something about it. And today's guest is no exception. I'm super excited to introduce you to Stephanie Mearse. Stephanie maintains an active and growing online presence across multiple platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and podcast features, including this one. She's been featured on over 100 podcasts. I can't even say that. And 50 plus summits globally, along with media recognition on outlets such as MSN, Yahoo Finance. She's been in fintech publications. And why? Because her content focuses on financial education, entrepreneurship, personal growth, and she seeks to reach a diverse audience of professionals, investors, and business owners. So you go where they are. Through her platforms and speaking engagements, she continues to expand her audience while building meaningful connections and brand visibility. And wow, does she have an amazing story. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Stephanie Mearse to our show. So yay, round of applause for Stephanie. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, me too, because it's been a minute since we actually first talked.
Yes,
And
yes,
And
it's
so,
been crazy.
welcome to our global audience. And so, we're everywhere. Shout out to the person in Bangladesh who literally just reached out to say, love what you're doing, please do more. Thought that was pretty cool.
Wow, that's
So, yes.
amazing.
So, hi, won't name you, but thank you for the shout out. And let's talk you now.
Mhm.
Because as anyone who's seen the show before knows, after reading the bio, we're always curious. Maybe you're doing what you thought you'd be doing when you grew up. My last guest did. When she was little, she actually wanted to be a CPA. That's pretty unique.
Yeah.
But let's find out. What did little Stephanie want to be when she was growing up?
It's funny that you ask that because I'm not joking. I wanted to be a lawyer. When I was 8 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer because, they make a lot of money. And it's true, they do make a lot of money, but I learned very early that I don't really like to negotiate or debate because I joined a debate club very early in life and realized, ooh, that's not something I'm very good at. I'm not quick on my feet like that, so probably not a good idea. And so it's funny because I went to business management as a real life thing to understand what I wanted to do, went into finance and realized that is my true calling.
Wow. And so the road isn't just you went from childhood wanting to be a lawyer to finance. Let's talk about the journey that you took to get there. How did you figure, first of all, how did you figure out that finance really was the right direction for you?
So it's funny how things work out. I actually went on a interview about 15, actually a little over 15 years ago, and the interview ended up turning into being a 6 hour long interview. And I didn't even remember applying for the job. And so I went into this 6 hour interview. It was one of my favorite moments. I got a chance to meet a wonderful man with amazing experience and was like, this feels right. And I was like, I want to make double what I've ever made before. I want to work part-time so I can be with my kids. And it just worked out. And I've been doing it now for 15 years, realized, oh my gosh, I really love helping people make a difference in their lives. And this is a big deal. I mean, most people look at their lives and what are the most important things in their lives? It's faith, family, friends, finance, and their health, right? So that seems to be kind of the going thing, right? And so one of the things that I really was all about was, okay, I might be able to help out with their finance. And I learned really quickly it is something I really enjoy doing, but more importantly, I put heart into finance, which is very rare.
Hmm. It is. And what's really interesting is you chose a field that even to this day is still more male dominated than usual.
It is, yeah. And it's that's a funny thing that you mentioned that because one of the very first conferences I went to about 12 years ago, I went to a conference of 500 people and it was all in finance, specifically in the private equity sector, which is my preference. And it was all men except for two women, and I was one of two. And the other lady and I look very different than each other. I have a very, very specific look. I love to look like Elle Woods from Legally Blonde, and they kept coming up to me asking me if I was a secretary, and I'm like, no, I'm the vice president the entire time.
Oh, you gotta love bias.
I know
I mean,
it's
really.
definitely interesting to say the least, but I
Mhm.
do feel very fortunate because it was a learning experience, and that's why I started to hire on not just women because I'm not biased in that sense, but I started hiring on more women to better understand. Okay, so women can do this, and here's how, and let me show you how to do this, and how I have so many women clients as well. Again, I have a lot of men clients, and I've hired on a lot of men too, but I've noticed that by bringing more women into the investment banking world, I'm able to really make an additional difference aside from just helping finance people in their finances because a lot of women are learning, especially elderly women, are learning, wow, my husband has been doing the finances for the last 50 years. He's passed. What do I do now? And so these
Mhm.
ladies are asking, what do I do? And I'm able to actually help guide them between hiring on those ladies to help influence them and show them how to do finances, and also helping these ladies who never did finances a day in their life and are learning now. And they're like
Wow.
80s.
I love it because, as you mentioned, I mean, really, we're talking about over 20 years of experience in business finance and entrepreneurship for yourself, um,
Yeah.
but especially in the private equity space. For those who aren't familiar with what that is, can you give us a little bit of an overview? I mean, I do know, but our audience doesn't. So, and we're here to listen to your brilliance. So,
Oh,
what exactly is private equity?
yes. So private equity is a private company that is selling shares or promissory notes of their investments to individual investors, accredited investors specifically. And one of the things that I primarily work in is those smaller companies, building them up to going into a merger acquisition, institutional purchase, and or going into an initial public offering, which is where most people see their investments. So a great example of this is a lot of people invested into SpaceX recently before it got onto the public markets. So that's just one of the examples of how a lot of private companies start with these smaller investors and work their way up to these large investments, which is usually an initial public offering or an institutional purchase or that merger buyout. So that's just one amazing example of what we do. Now, one of the companies I tend to work with a lot is in oil and gas deals. A lot of people are for them and some people are against them. And I am just following the money and also making sure that it's oil and gas deals that don't hurt the environment to extremes, like they don't do fracking or anything like that. Now, one of the main reasons I like it in the private equity sector is because we actually physically get to go see tangible environments. So we get to go physically see the oil and gas wells. We get to go see the facilities that process the oil, and we also get to see the pipelines too. So to me, that is kind of another level of investing as opposed to it just being a general idea of what that is.
Wow. Wow. I'm trying to imagine what it must feel like to be out there in the fields, actually on site, looking at these massive structures and rigs and actually seeing that up close and personal.
It's always really fun to take selfies with them because they're not the prettiest things in the whole wide world, but I love to take selfies of them so that way I can say, hey, look, I was at this oil well and I was at this, oil processing facility. And it just not only represents, wow, a tangible item for me personally, it's representing those clients' investments as well. And to me, that's extremely important.
Mhm. Now, it sounds like you had a really supportive initial first leader, but I imagine to your point, everybody thought you were the secretary in the room at a conference.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges as a woman in this chosen industry, in terms of how you navigate it?
Yeah, so that's a great question because a lot of women actually leave the industry because they're treated so negatively. And so, one of the reasons I've stayed in the industry as long as I have is one, for my heart, because I really do have a heart to help, and not a lot of people in the industry do.
Mm,
But more importantly, because there are so few women in the industry that actually really lead with their hearts, lead with their minds, but also knowing that we're women and women of influence and making a difference, that to me means the world. And so, what I've done differently than most women is that instead of saying, you know what, this is too hard, it's too much, because this man just took over the presidency position because he's a man, or because this man just said, no, I'm not going to do an account with you because you're a woman, or whatever those things are. I said, you know what? That's something to learn from. I just won't work with those people or work with that company. I will be working with these other companies that see my value for who I actually am, as opposed to the fact that I'm just a woman.
hmm. Which is awesome. And that you recognize that that's not about you, that's about them.
Exactly.
To the extent you can talk about, what's one or two of your favorite success stories that you've assisted along the way?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in very, very different successful ways. One is in portfolio management. I can't go into details a lot,
Right.
unfortunately, but portfolio management in the private equity sector and investment banking has been able to develop many retirees and also in millionaires at the same time, which I'm very fortunate to be a part of. I honestly just followed success. I went to my mentor. My mentor was a millionaire by the time he was 30, and retired for 2 weeks, got bored, and went back to work, and now still works at like 75 years old. He loves what he does. And I just followed success. He became a millionaire. I became a millionaire before I was 35, and ultimately, I just followed those cookies to get to success. And so that has been really fortunate. I've also been very fortunate in my consulting world in helping people create businesses and become multi-million dollar companies. And I feel very fortunate that I've been a part of so many people's stories, but more importantly, that I've been able to be a baseline to understanding that next step for them.
Mhm. And I think that you're being a little humble when you say businesses in general, 'cause I know you've launched and scaled over 40
Yeah,
directly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, you know, where does one find the energy to do all of that and be a spouse and have children and be active in their lives? Because you were clear from the beginning that that's also a big part of your priority. That's why you only wanted to do it part-time initially.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, my children are definitely my number one in my life. My husband, of course, and my faith is also very important to me. But I do tend to have a lot of energy. I have ADHD, and I consider it a superpower. And with my ADHD, which I've always had a crazy amount of energy. Either I use it in a positive way or it goes negative. And so I chose to use it in a positive way at a very young age, learning, okay, so if I stay active in positive ways, like writing books, being on podcasts, working, those type of things, I keep myself out of trouble. Not that I ever want to get into trouble, but for some reason that energy just, it's going to go one way or another, and I want it to go the positive way. So I've been very fortunate to learn, okay, well, what are different things that I want to do in my life? And that bucket list has really helped me and guide me in the ways that I wanted to go. And that includes writing all these books, and I'm on my next book, and all of these other things. And so that massive amount of energy, which again, I consider ADHD as a superpower, and my daughter has it pretty massively too. And I'm trying to show her how that can be such a positive. Um,
Yes.
you know, for me, that has made it to where I'm capable of juggling so many different things. Now, as I've gotten older, now that I am in my 40s, I have learned very quickly that I can't juggle as much as I used to, but my knowledge base is far more than ever before. And so I still want to do everything that I want to do, but scale back on the things that aren't necessary anymore.
You get to be more selective,
Exactly.
which is awesome. And yes, I fully agree with you for many reasons that we can always talk about in another podcast. But yes, especially ADD, ADHD shows up very differently in everybody, and especially in women, which is one
Mhm.
of the reasons why it's becoming more increasingly recognized, because they didn't know how to recognize it before. And I agree.
What in fact, I would argue that it is a superpower, and that the majority of people are actually neurodiverse, and the exception is neurotypical, just because of the way humans evolved and the things that we did and who specialized in
Yes,
what.
yes,
You know,
thousand
with
percent.
so I love that you channeled yours um, into helping individuals and families build long-term wealth. And that includes the educational component. And so I know you do. Let's talk about you know, the education that you
Mhm.
provide, as well as the work you do with nonprofits and giving back to the community. I mean, you weren't kidding when you say you're involved in a lot.
I am. I really am very fortunate to be able to educate children. So I actually have worked with school systems, colleges. I've presented for a lot of different organizations, companies. Uh, all different facets of life. I've actually had the opportunity to speak at a lot of different places, and one of my favorites is helping younger children to understand basic information in regards to the world of finance. And if I'm sure I don't know if you remember, because I barely remember my high school education of finance. It was so minimal in comparison to what it really meant. And so what I really, and not to downplay what the system's doing currently, but what I'm saying is that there is really room for improvement, and that's why I'm working with a senator right now to embody some additional education for the school systems in California right now, actually. And so one of the things I've had the fortunate ability to do is go in and speak to different organizations with young children and show them, hey, what is money? What is the dollar? What does this mean? How do checking accounts work? How do savings accounts work? How do you trade in the markets? What are the markets? What are the whole nine yards? And I really try to downplay things toward younger children. I've taught as young as 5, and then I've worked with seniors in education as well, up to about 90 years old. And so my ultimate goal is to really genuinely have people understand to their core what basic financials are, what basic tax information is, what basic investments are, basic investment banking is, so that way these children or even young youth will better be prepared moving forward in their life.
Mhm. And what's interesting is while we're based here in the United States, and our viewership is global, these are lessons that are needed around the world,
Yes,
not
yes.
just here. Some of the terminology may be different, but having the honor of getting to work with entrepreneurs in all different countries, and it's they're taught differently than we are
Yes, yes,
in terms of these things and how our economy even works. And so it's really awesome that you are working with your senator in California to try and make a difference. And yes, I'm a little bit older. And so, but I remember being on the financial jumpstart committee for state of New Jersey back in 2001, and well, actually 1999 to 2002, and and they're still working on it.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, our government is very slow going. Ultimately, as long as we continue to move forward, that's ultimately our goal.
In terms of the work that you do with nonprofits and
Mhm.
giving back to the community, you talked a little bit about the education you do for children. What about others?
Yeah, so one of the other educational pieces that I really love is also trying to educate people online on podcasts, the different speaking engagements. I have a little YouTube channel that helps basic information as well. I'm working with a lot of nonprofits to help with additional education as well in the finance world. And then, of course, there's working with large institutional companies that are trying to educate more people more too. So there's a lot of different avenues, but one of the things that I enjoy the most by far is in-person meetings or like Zooms like this, where we get a chance to have a conversation on a podcast to really go into any details people have questions about.
Mhm. And so, speaking about details, I have questions about your fifth book. Let's talk about the other books and then talk about the one you're working on now, because that is quite an accomplishment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny how things work out. I was told that I was stupid from the time I was very young until, until I got to be about 25 years old, 28 years old. And it's funny because I was always told I couldn't speak in front of anybody, I couldn't write any of these things because I do have a lisp, and I was told that I couldn't do any of those things because of those things. So I said, you know what? I've conquered my fear of jumping out of a plane and going skydiving. I can go and talk to people. That's something I can do. And I can write what I'm feeling or seeing and thinking and feeling, and those type of things. So my first book was actually a kind of like a overcoming fear kind of vibe. And so my very first book was something that had been in my heart for over 10 years. And it's called Women of Perfection, Perfectly Imperfect. And it literally goes over my life story. It goes over next steps, overcoming perfectionism, which has been very hard for a lot of women who have ADHD. I know that for a fact. And so that was my very first book, and I feel very fortunate to have had that go out in 2019. It was that one was a Amazon bestseller, and I felt so fortunate. I got to have a billboard in Sacramento for it, and I mean, just so many wonderful things happened for my first book. My second book was Women of Perfection, Perfectly Imperfect, but it was a journaling experience. So I actually created an opportunity to make it more of a journaling experience as opposed to just a book.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really fun actually because I like the interactive aspect of it. The third book was called Empowered Women of Empower Hour. And so for about 10 years or so, I was the CEO of a women's empowerment group called Empower Hour. We had a following up to 1.9 million people around the world. And we had several branches at one point as well. I think that was in 2002 that we did this one. I went to a bunch of the ladies in the Empower Hour group and said, hey, does anybody want to write their story, but only have to do a chapter? And tell us, what did you overcome? And so we had quite a few ladies come back and say, yes, I'm interested. They had given us their overviews of what their obstacles were. And we had some really, truly insightful stories. I also gave a very short story of myself as well. And that book was, so each chapter is a different woman writing their story and over how they overcame obstacles. All of those stories really were inspirational. We had one lady who talked about, because she has MS, and she actually couldn't even physically write the book because she couldn't use her hands. And she was telling about her story. And there was another, I mean, there's just so many amazing stories. But what was really great about this book was that every dollar that ever was made by this book went back to a nonprofit called the Butterfly Element, and that nonprofit helped women and children on the streets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
That's
a wonderful experience.
oh, that is awesome. Oh, that's so awesome on so many levels.
Yeah, and that one was also an Amazon bestseller. And then my fourth book was called 365 Days of Dark Secrets, and this was a world record holder. And that one we got a chance to write with, I think it was 18 other authors from different countries, so 18 different countries.
Wow.
All came together, and I got a chance to meet some wonderful people from China and Jamaica, and I mean, just so many places around the world. And so we all wrote chapters about something that we felt is important, so that way each day would represent a different subject or a different idea or how to be positive, that kind of stuff. But it was truly an amazing experience, and the fact that it became a world record holder was truly unexpected in in my opinion, but wonderful at the same time.
So wait, so what is the world record that it holds?
The most authors from different countries in one book.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, I was the only one from California too. So
Wow.
yeah, it was really wonderful.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. That in of itself is such a huge accomplishment.
Yeah,
And
it's been a lot. So I started writing into the end of 2019 and have published four books since then. And then actually, technically, I have a fifth book as well, but that one is, it's not me, it's my son. My son was 12 or 13 years old and he wanted to publish a joke book. And so I helped him publish a joke book. So my son at 13 was a published author, which I thought was kind of fun.
Okay, that's also awesome. As a mom of an entrepreneur who's now 24 and owns his own company, totally love that. Think that's amazing. And I believe your son is starting to make that adult transition as well.
Yeah, he
And
is.
so it'll be fascinating to see what he chooses to do.
I'm excited to see. He's a wonderful, wonderful person.
Wow. But now, so that was your fifth book, but that wasn't yours, but you're working on your fifth book.
I'm working on my fifth book that I actually wrote. It's all about spirituality and the flow of money and understanding the flow of money in a way that's very unique to most people because a lot of people see money as evil. A lot of is known as the root of all evil, and people who see it that way usually don't have a lot of money. And so one of my goals is to explain this kind of unique experience that I've had with the flow of money, and my book is going to be called the Flow of Life,
Mhm.
and I'm working on it. We'll see where it should be coming out in the next 6 months to a year max. But I'm kind of excited about starting it. And what's funny is every single book I've ever written, I've always, it just kind of comes to me. I get it out, and it's amazing. I've written an entire book in one day.
Wow.
It just kind of came to me.
You know what? And I really want to point out how important this is because, to your point, most people use the phrase money is the root of all evil. That's not the actual phrase. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And so there's a disconnect there that people don't understand. You can have very little, but be so in love with it that it gets in your way. And you can have a lot and still be very blessed and have an abundant life.
Mhm.
And so kudos to you for taking that on and helping to clarify that because a lot of people really don't understand that. Actually, they don't understand a lot of things get changed over time, but it's not about the money, it's the love of money as opposed to the power and the flow of what you do with that money, which
Exactly.
is how you use it. And now abundance really truly flows. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when is that book coming?
I'm hoping to be done with it in the next 6 months to a year max. It really depends on when the flow comes to me. Literally, I wrote 4 chapters in a night the other day. I
Yeah,
was like, hey, I feel that. That's what I'm hearing. And then I just type out everything. And then, of course, I have to make it all pretty. But essentially, as things come and flow, it may be faster, but essentially, I just am not pushing anything too far because I've had this idea for quite some time and it finally kind of came through. So,
that is so awesome.
yeah.
So, as you move forward, there's a lot of people who are listening, and whether that is they're thinking about entrepreneurship, they want to learn more from a financial education standpoint, or maybe they even are exploring, you know, financial opportunities, whether it's to become an investor or to seek private equity. I have an audience. I do a lot of work in the founder funder community. Um, it, Feel free to pick or address any one of those groups, either on a larger scale or on a more direct scale. Um, what advice would you have, let's say, for someone who's seeking financial education?
Absolutely. So, financial education, we're very fortunate in this day and age to have a lot of information come our direction. The disadvantage, in my opinion, is that there's a lot of information that's not necessarily what's the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And so, it is my opinion, or my thought is, for me at least, is the person who's speaking, the person that's writing that book, that person that is speaking physically at whatever event you're at, do they seem like the right fit for being a part of your life? Do they seem like they have the right heart to be in your life? Do they seem like the right personality to be in your life? And then if they seem like the right fit, you're resonating with that person, then listen to that. And they will help guide you in the way that you're needing to be in because each and every person have very different opinions. Some people don't like me because I'm overly peppy, and other people love me because I'm peppy. And I'm okay either way, but each person has different ways of that they want. So for the people who are like me and love that energy and positive and next level stuff, I am a huge fan of teaching myself personally. Please come check me out at the stephaniemearse.com. I also am I love a lot of other really big names too, like Tony Robbins and others. But they all have very different perspectives. So it's all about figuring out what is your right fit and understanding how that fits with your life.
Yeah. I always say there's a reason why McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and high-end restaurants can all exist in a cluster. It's because there's different things for different people, and what works for one may not work for somebody else. And what's interesting is the advice you gave really has a level of applicability, whether it's somebody who wants to get into private equity or someone who's exploring seeking private equity.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And seeking private equity is always interesting too. I've worked with a lot of small companies that are needing assets and needing more additional funds. And that's actually a completely different world than somebody who's investing into the private equity. And being a liaison for both has actually been very rewarding experience.
That's awesome. So, believe it or not, our half hour's winding down.
Oh my gosh.
I know it really it goes so fast, and but it leaves our audience wanting more, just in case, so we can bring you back for your fifth book and talk more about that, and who knows what future world records you may break. For those who want to reach you, of course, for all of you watching, Stephanie's information is going to be included in the bio and comment section wherever you are accessing this show, either on through audio or on video. But for those who maybe are listening audio now and want to know right up front, what is the best way for people to find you?
Absolutely. The easiest way to find me for any of the different avenues is my stephaniemearse.com website. That's going to be by far the easiest way because there's so many different avenues you could be reaching me at. Alternatively, you're also welcome to set up a link with me on Calendly as well, which I can happily send that over to you guys if you have additional questions. I'm all about trying to be accessible, but within the correct availability. And so my ultimate goal is to help everywhere I can and anyone I can. Unfortunately, I can't help the entire world right this second, but it will get there.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also imagine you can search for her on any one of the 100 podcasts and 50 summits that have recordings available that she has appeared at, and there's probably clips of her out there. When in doubt, Google Stephanie Mearse. But thank you so much. I really have been looking forward to this, and because this is a really important topic for all people, but it's really especially powerful for women to
Mhm.
see other women who are on this road less taken.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so thank you so much for your time, sharing your intellectual brilliance with all of our listeners and viewers.
Absolutely.
And for all of you who are listening on or watching, wherever you are, we really, really value and appreciate the fact that you chose to spend your time with us. You have so many viewing choices to watch. And so the fact that you chose us is really valuable to us, and it's not lost on us in any way, shape, or form. And if you're finding benefit from guests like Stephanie and our other guests, please share us, tell others about it so that they can find benefit as well. And always remember, whatever you're going through in your life, whatever changes you're facing, no matter how big or small, you can always tune in to our show for more conversations with illuminating and fascinating and peppy, exciting, innovative guests such as Stephanie, who overcame whatever challenges, especially in the industry that she's in as a woman at the time she entered it, who overcame whatever challenges she faced to find her purpose and to live it.